Welcome to English Story Vault, where we're ready to level up your English. Here, learning happens through stories slow, clear, and fun. Just listen, relax, and enjoy the journey. 1. Introduction. Key leaders from 7 nations are holding a major gathering known as the G7 Summit. It's taking place in Canada. These leaders are discussing various globally significant matters. Simultaneously, a severe issue is unfolding far away in the Middle East. 2 nations, Israel and Iran, are engaged in conflict, attacking each other. This fighting has persisted for several days. It's a dangerous situation. Suddenly, news emerges from the United States. The White House, where the American president resides and works, issues a surprising announcement. President Trump is departing the G7 meeting in Canada. He will return to Washington. The reason cited is the Middle East conflict. The White House states the president needs to address this critical problem. This decision carries significant weight. It will impact the Canadian meeting and influence the Middle East situation. People globally are observing, eager to know President Trump's next move. This decision alters dynamics. The world awaits subsequent developments too. The president goes home. The White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, addressed people on Monday evening. She made a crucial announcement regarding President Trump. She stated that the president was leaving the G7 summit prematurely. The meeting was occurring in Canada. President Trump was returning home to Washington, D.C. The official reason for his early departure was grave. She indicated the president needed to focus on numerous important issues. The most pressing was the challenging Middle East situation, which was then in crisis. For 5 consecutive days, Israel and Iran had been fighting, using military force against each other. Israel was launching attacks on sites within Iran, targeting buildings and vital locations. Some attacks occurred in Tehran, Iran's capital. Reports suggested Israel was striking key sites linked to Iran's security leaders. Iran was also attacking Israel, firing many missiles. People in Israel heard loud sirens warning of incoming missiles. News reports indicated some missiles hit locations in Israel. The conflict between the 2 nations was intensifying daily. While leaving the G7 meeting, President Trump also used his social media platform, Truth Social, to share his thoughts. He posted a message specifically about Iran. In it, President Trump asserted that Iran should have accepted a nuclear deal he previously offered. He believed they erred by not signing the agreement. He also conveyed a very strong and unexpected message to Tehran residents, advising everyone there to leave the city. Tehran is enormous, with possibly 10 million or more inhabitants. Telling everyone to evacuate is a monumental statement. President Trump's decision to exit the G7 meeting early was a notable event. It meant his absence from the main discussion table with other leaders from the world's most powerful nations. Many leaders had hoped to speak with President Trump personally about global concerns. His departure meant some crucial discussions would unfold differently. For example, talks about new rules or penalties for countries like Russia might be less impactful or effective without the American president's involvement. So, this chapter details President Trump's early return home. The official reason was to address the Middle East crisis. Concurrently, he sent a clear, direct message via social media about the situation. His early departure highlighted the escalating conflict and showed his priorities. 3. An empty chair at the table. The G7 summit in Canada continued, but felt altered. A vital person was absent from the main table. President Trump had left early. Many attending world leaders felt let down. They had traveled hoping for significant conversations with the American president. That opportunity was now gone. One particularly disappointed leader was Ukraine's President Zelensky. Ukraine faces a difficult conflict with Russia. President Zelensky had strong hopes for this summit, viewing it as a prime chance to speak directly with President Trump. His aim was to urge President Trump to increase pressure on Russia. President Zelensky believed the United States wasn't doing enough to aid Ukraine and halt Russia. He thought that if President Trump listened to him and spoke with other European leaders at the summit, it might shift his stance. Perhaps President Trump would then agree that Russia wasn't changing its actions and that stronger measures, like more sanctions, were needed. Even with President Trump gone, leaders still discuss sanctions against Russia. Sanctions are measures countries take to compel another country to cease certain actions, often by restricting trade or money. There's talk of new sanctions that some European nations and Canada might announce. They also discussed ways to lower the price of Russian oil on the global market, which would harm Russia's economy, however. These discussions felt weaker without President Trump. The United States is a massive, powerful nation. Its involvement significantly strengthens sanctions. If the American government isn't part of sanctions talks, or doesn't help implement them, the sanctions will naturally be less effective. The meeting felt incomplete, as if a key group member was missing. It was a discussion with only some important voices, not all. The empty chair at the table clearly symbolized President Trump's absence and its effect on the summit's work. Leaders continued, but the U.S. president's absence cast a shadow. His early departure meant losing the chance for direct U.S. support on issues like strengthening actions against Russia. Other leaders had to adjust their plans. They knew that without full U.S. participation, some crucial decisions might lack the same impact or strength. The G7 summit aims to unite leaders of the world's largest economies to discuss global problems. With one of the most significant leaders gone, the meeting felt less powerful, and future steps seemed less certain. The empty chair was more than just a space. It represented the missing U.S. influence at a critical moment for international cooperation and addressing global conflicts. This conflict had been ongoing for 5 days, growing more perilous daily. Israel was attacking sites in Iran. The Israeli army stated they were hitting important targets in Iran's capital, Tehran, and targeting security officials. Videos were shown which Israel claimed proved their attacks, reportedly depicting destruction, including military aircraft and vehicles. Israel's prime minister stated that the military campaign would continue, suggesting the fighting wouldn't soon cease. He claimed they were successfully damaging parts of Iran's military programs in retaliation. Iran was fighting back, sending many missiles towards Israel. Israelis heard sirens warning of incoming attacks. Reports of explosions in various parts of Israel emerged. Sometimes these missiles hit areas inside the country. Attacks occurred both day and night. Some attacks were less severe, but the danger persisted. In Tehran, Iran's capital, explosions were also heard. Reports indicated Israel continued its attacks there. Ascertaining precisely what was happening inside Iran was difficult. The back-and-forth attacks made the situation very serious. Both sides were hitting targets in the other country. The number of days with fighting kept increasing. The war was worsening. Each day brought new attacks and more danger for both nations' people. The conflict wasn't ending. Instead, it was intensifying. The world watched as the fighting continued for a 5th day with no sign of stopping. 5. News from the conflict zone reporters are stationed in the conflict zones, aiming to inform the world of their observations. One reporter in Jerusalem, Israel's capital, reports that it's just past 9 a.m. Suddenly, sirens blare again, warning. Sirens indicating incoming missiles or rockets. People must seek shelter. This is another wave of attacks from Iran, occurring about 20 minutes before the reporter spoke. There's a report that one attack struck a location in central Israel. The Israeli government wishes to keep the exact location undisclosed for security reasons. These morning attacks followed nighttime attacks. There were 2 waves of Iranian missiles overnight. Iran is launching these missiles in response to Israel's actions. Israel has been attacking targets in Iran. The nighttime attacks weren't as strong as some previous nights. There were no reports of missiles directly hitting anything, nor any injuries or fatalities from the night attacks in Israel. However, fighting is occurring on both sides. In Iran, more explosions are reported in Tehran, the capital. Israel continues its attacks on targets in Tehran and other Iranian locations. Obtaining precise information from inside Iran is very difficult for reporters and news organizations outside the country, but there are indications from the Israeli side. Israeli authorities state that this military campaign will likely persist for some time. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently spoke about the situation. He said Israel has damaged some of Iran's key military programs like their nuclear materials and missile plans. But the Prime Minister also stated that Israel's military needs more time to complete the job, suggesting the campaign would likely continue for quite some time. This message implies the conflict is far from over. Attacks and responses are expected to continue. People in both countries and globally are watching closely, wanting to know when this dangerous fighting will cease. The situation remains very serious in the conflict zone. Each day brings new attacks and new reports from the ground. Reporters continue to share what they can, but the full picture isn't always clear, especially from inside Iran. The sound of sirens is now part of life in some areas. Explosions are heard in others. This is the reality of the conflict. 6. What does America want? Many observed President Trump's actions. He left the major meeting early, made strong statements about the conflict. People wondered, why did he do this? What does America want? Experts began to analyze his reasons. One expert shared his insights, believing President Trump is pressuring Iran. Pressure means trying to make someone comply without a major war. The expert thinks President Trump isn't starting a war now. Instead, he's demonstrating America's power. Wanting Iran to see America is far stronger. He believes President Trump is sending a message. If fighting continues, Iran will lose. America possesses much greater power and strength. The expert thinks the main goal is to make Iran stop fighting, to make Iran agree to talks. President Trump wants Iran to agree to significant changes. This could involve halting their missile programs or stopping support for certain groups. The expert said America could still use its military later, but for now, the focus seems to be on using pressure. President Trump's actions are a way to push Iran very hard, to force them to end the war, to force them to the negotiating table. Some believe Iran is seeking a way to end the war now. They see Israel's army as very strong. This fighting is difficult for Iran. Perhaps they are ready to talk due to the pressure. But the big question is, what will America demand in these talks? What conditions will America impose on Iran? Will Iran agree to these conditions? The expert says it's hard to know the answer now. The world awaits what happens next. President Trump's actions have altered the situation. He's using pressure to try and get what America wants, for Iran to stop fighting and to agree to talk and make changes. This is one way to understand America's current goal plan to use power and pressure. It's not necessarily a direct move to start a large war, but the chance of war remains real. It depends on how Iran reacts to the pressure. Will they agree to talk? Will they stop fighting? Or will they fight back harder? The expert believes the pressure is working, thinking Iran shows signs of wanting to end the war. But the final outcome is unclear. What America wants seems to be peace, but peace on America's terms, achieved by demonstrating great power and demanding changes. It is a strategy of pressure. 7. Life in the capital city. Life in Tehran, Iran's capital city, is currently difficult. The conflict with Israel persists. City residents hear about ongoing attacks, with reports of explosions in some areas. This fills people with fear and worry. News indicates civilian areas have been hit, resulting in injuries and fatalities. This causes anger and panic among the city's inhabitants due to the danger. President Trump, the U.S. president, sent a message urging everyone to leave Tehran. However, Tehran is an enormous city with over 10 million people. It's impossible for so many to quickly abandon their homes in the city. Iran's government seems to be seeking a way to end the fighting. Some officials have signaled a desire for the war to cease. They recognize Israel has a stronger military for Tehran's people. Daily life revolves around staying safe, focused on surviving the attacks. They are not currently thinking about protesting the government. It's hard to think about other things when worried about bombs and personal safety. People need protection and places to hide. The current situation makes it difficult for people to do anything but try to get through the day. The focus is on survival for the millions in the capital. Point 8. What happens next? The meeting of important leaders in Canada continued, but the leader of the United States wasn't there. President Trump had left early, returning home. The other leaders talked and discussed, but something felt missing. Without the American president, some conversations were difficult. The world watched the news thinking about two main things. First, the G7 meeting. What would happen there now? Would the countries agree on important things? Would they make big decisions without the United States? It was hard to say. The meeting felt different. It continued, but the empty chair was a reminder of the big changes happening. Second, the war in the Middle East. The fighting between Israel and Iran was still a big problem. Attacks continued. People were scared. The situation was very dangerous. Many people believed that what happened next in the war depended on one country, the United States. Everyone was waiting. They were waiting to see what President Trump would do. There were two main possibilities. Would the United States use its military power? Would American soldiers or planes become part of the fighting? This would make the war much bigger and more serious. Many people worried about this. Or would President Trump try a different way? Would he try to stop the fighting with words? Would he offer a way for the countries to talk? Could he help find a path to peace? This was the other possibility people hoped for. But nobody knew the answer. President Trump had gone back to Washington. He had important matters to think about, the White House said. But what were those matters? What decision would he make? The world was in a time of great uncertainty. The future felt unclear. The leaders at the G7 didn't know. The people living in the Middle East didn't know. Everyone was just waiting to see what would happen next.